shot in so many ways. Like I love one of my favorite things about this movie, besides I guess all of it that I've been talking about, is I love the color story of this movie so much. And I love the music and the lack of music. And like with the color story, like I love in the beginning, it's like beachy and fun and everything is lush and like dripping in sunlight and everyone looks gorgeous. And then my favorite scene in the movie is when she's just been attacked and she's finally got away and she stands up on that rock and the camera is swirling around her and just all the color drains from the
Mm-hmm.
movie and becomes so gray and like you're in it. And like there's little pops of color when she thinks she's going to be saved, but for the rest of the movie it is this dark, cold gray that just permeates the screen and just is like so haunting, and it's such a great use of colorization within the movie, and it's just wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
the nighttime shots.
Oh my God.
They're all very dark, which you'd
So
expect, obviously. But
stark.
yeah,
Yeah. But they just make it in a way that reinforces her being alone. Like I think in that sort of second act of the movie, she's still waiting for someone to come and rescue her, like she thinks that drunk guy on the beach, maybe the surfers, maybe there's somebody else who can come and get her. She's still waiting around. And then when she finally sort of tapes her video goodbye, I think that's kind of the moment, well, maybe the moment after the flare, but she's like, I gotta do this on my own. I gotta do something. But yeah, the color sort of reinforces a lot of things for us. And really helps that change. And I love that part. And the music too, like, you were talking about big hits and like costume designers and things, people who are involved in this movie. And another one is the musical score. It's
Beltrami.
Beltrami, yeah, who's done a ton. Like he's done so much, Scream, The Hurt Locker, Quiet Place, and his score is beautiful. But then beyond that, like I really, really love the silence in this movie. It's one of the things that stood out for me the most, especially typically during times when there would be music. In Jaws, it would be the Jaws song. And here, right before she's going to be attacked, it's complete silence. And it is so nerve-wracking to watch. And
Mm-hmm.
just, again, ratchet it up to a level that it's like you almost can't stand it. Or for me, because I am always scared when I'm watching these movies. It makes it almost unbearable to watch when you're just hearing, the camera's low on the water, you're hearing the waves, and you're just waiting for her to be attacked. And it is terrifying.
And you have that nice magic hour shot that just
Yeah.
looks beautiful. And it's kind of funny. I'll always remember this because my cousin, he has a daughter who just went to college, and she came to visit us to go with Meg to her job because Meg's like a director of marketing at her job. So she just wanted to go see what Meg does. So Meg was able to take her into work. And one night when we were here, we put on The Shallows just to kind of watch a movie. And it was me and Madison. She's like, it was watching it, and we were both freaking out. I had my leg blocking my eyes, and Megan's just watching us like, what is happening here? But that scene, I've seen this movie about 6 times. And even watching it again, when that thing comes out of the wave with the score, like coming back in, that's a gnarly scene. And it always gets me. And I just remember, I don't know why, I'm always on edge, even though I've seen it so many times. And I know it's a weird story to tell me using my leg to block my eyes, but it gets me. Like this movie it has some great suspense in it. And also I like how, I don't think people realize how hard it is to tell a story in one place and make it visually interesting. Because when you have that, okay, we're in one spot. You know how many different angles you have to use in storyboard? So when people say this is a B movie, I don't know, I disagree. But yeah,
especially
you're
like
right, though,
a
the narrative has
campy
been
B
set.
movie like that. There is nothing camp about this film. This is as
No.
sincere as it comes.
Or like the only camp is like
Steven
Yeah,
Seagal.
Steven Seagal, or maybe at the end when she finally lets loose a little bit. But even then, I'm like, that's not camp. That's just like frustration from, she's dehydrated and tired and a shark is attacking her. Like, you would go insane too.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. This is one of the rare movies that actually shows the sunburnt aspect of a character, the dehydration, the look on her face, and she gets lit up in this. It's almost like a Sam Raimi movie. Jellyfish, bites, coral, sunburn, dehydration.
I appreciate that at the start of the film, it's Blake Lively. She's stunning. But
stunning.
she's not afraid to look considerably less stunning as the film goes on. Compare this to Great White, in which Katrina Bowden had some kind of makeup artist on the life raft with her the whole film. So,
I mean, it is quite a big ask to it always makes me laugh. I think of like some of the Jennifer Lopez movies where they like try to make her seem like a normal girl. I feel like I've talked about this before on this podcast, but you're like, it's Jennifer Lopez. So it's like a big ask to make Blake Lively rather look like worn down, and I think they do a good job. Like, she is a stunningly beautiful woman, and so they make like she looks like hell at the end, and it's great. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, like they make her look like she's been through it, and it's great. And I feel like they had to probably like put more makeup on her to make her look terrible, because I think naturally she's quite beautiful too, right? So
this is sunburnt. She was sunburnt and dehydrated. Yeah. Yes. And they show her drinking some water on the beach too. So like, oh, okay, so she has some hydration. She has some water,
and she ate
in her.
It's so you're so right. Like, it's so well thought out. Like, everything is sort of covered. Like, there's nothing for me other than, I guess I don't super believe that the chain would move that fast through the water, but I'm happy to be on board for that.
It's a really heavy chain.
A really heavy chain. Those are heavy chains. She has a bit of water before she goes, an apple, maybe some almonds or something. Like, she's okay, and like her watch isn't like, it's like a waterproof thing. Like, they really think through a lot of what's happening. I think you're right, because it's like a singular set movie, so you can't have too many plot holes. So. Oh
yeah, that'd be glaring, wouldn't it?
And she uses everything. She uses her earrings and her necklace, like everything, and the strap that she has to keep the surfboard to her. She uses that as a tourniquet. You know, everything she's got, she uses. She's kind of fortunate that she has the kind of physique where her leg will fit into her arm sleeve, so that she can use that as a compression bandage. Wouldn't happen for everyone.
No. Yeah. And like, even the timing of the tide, when I first watched this movie, I was like, why does she have to move? She didn't have to move before. But then you realize that luck plays into this movie a lot, which I think is great. Like, if you're going to beat a, sadistic shark, you got to have luck on your side.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's good, but it's like, clearly she timed it right when she was attacked, that she got there just as sort of high tide was ending. So she...
Mm-hmm. The exact same story happened to somebody else a week before, but they were less lucky and died. So they didn't make that film.
It is interesting. Yeah, I'm like, is this a true story? The guys in the water, when they're swimming out and she's like, go back, there's a shark. They're like, there's no sharks here. Which I thought, like, I'm very curious more about like the lore of this cove. Like, I mean, I guess maybe that's one thing I wished we could have known a little bit more about, but it wouldn't have made sense for him to explain the mystique of the core, or it would have felt too unnatural, I suppose. Like, it was better off that everyone was just like, this is a beach? What? Like, I don't know what this is. As opposed to really, like, giving us that text.
But I feel like the main moral of this film is hashtag believe women. Especially if they're stranded on a rock yelling shark at you.
Yeah. Maybe. It's something... Yeah, maybe. Believe women, or, like... I'm one of the things... I keep saying one of the things, but I've named, like, 15 things. With this movie... I love a final girl. I love a final girl in whatever state they'll give it to me. And I love Carol J. Clover, who's sort of, the film theorist who really talked about final girls a lot. And in the 80s, a final girl was just somebody who survived, right? Like, she was usually virginal, probably pretty innocent. She was probably pretty passive, but she made it out. There wasn't much to her. And then, and no shade to those women either. And then, in the 90s, I felt like there was a big shift with Sidney Prescott in Scream, and a little
Campbell.
Bit, right? So great, and we see through the Halloween movies with Laurie Strode as well, where they're a lot more active. They fight back. They're not virginal. All of these things, but
Halloween H2O, great example. I interrupted, sorry, but I love.
No, but you're right. Like Laurie Strode is so wonderful, but with these two women especially, like, they're so haunted by their traumas, like, definitely so. Like, why wouldn't they be? These men are literally coming after them all the time. And sort of Nancy Adams in this movie, I think Adams is her last name, and I think of Natasha Lyonne in Russian Doll sort of represent this new phase of Final Girl for me, where they certainly go through a lot and they're processing things, but they come out on the other side. Like they have overcome what they're doing. They've sort of put in that work, to use, parlance of the day, and they've grown from it. Like, spoiler alerts for Russian Doll, I guess, and for this movie. But we see Blake at the end. She's clearly gone to medical school. They call her Dr. Adams. She still has her scar, but she's getting back in the water. She looks more at peace. It seems like she's processed this sort of trauma with her mother and her family and herself, and, and in general, battling a shark. Like, I would not be getting back in the water ever, but she does. And with Russian Doll, it's the same thing. She processes this trauma that she has, and instead of it haunting her entire life and making her incapable of doing things, she comes out from it. And I find that so poignant, and we don't see a lot of women like that in movies, more so now, but it's really refreshing. I can't say enough good things about this character and the way that Blake portrayed her. And to me, I hold Nancy dear to my heart because of that. And so,
yeah. And there's a sense of humor to her as well. There's just, I think I can't think of many characters who are played like this, I guess female characters in these types of movies. Mm-hmm. So, like, as much as I love Underwater, I think it's a great movie. Kristen Stewart's character, I think she's really good in it, but she's much more practical, kind of driven. She doesn't really have that warmth. I like the way that she plays this. It's neat.
And I loved 47 Meters Down. I know a lot of people have problems with that movie. I think I joked about it before. The Shallows and 47 Meters Down, those are great back-to-back movies. Those are really, really interesting portrayals of women in action, thriller, horror movies as well. But Mandy Moore's character and Claire Holt's character are, like, I don't want to give spoiler alerts, but they're
yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Jay hasn't seen it.
People should watch that.
It's coming up on the future on the show.
Yeah, like the way women are portrayed in that movie is fascinating to me, and I love it. I think that is it's different than this, but it's another great example of it. I think we're getting it. I always will find a movie a little bit more interesting when there is a female protagonist. So maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think it just gives a little bit more levels, and I think in The Shallows it really adds to that too, with the beginning of her journey that we're talking about. The way that men interact with her in this movie is really interesting. I think it's interesting that we think the shark at first is male, but we find out that the director views it as female. So I think there's a lot of interesting play around gender in these movies. So.
And I like that you said it, because characters like this are rare, and this is a weird. I remember in '94. So I'm 39. Yeah, that's right. And I remember when I was 12, I saw the movie Speed with Sandra Bullock. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is a really cool character. Because I hadn't seen like that type of character, like a female protagonist on screen before that was like Sandra Bullock. I don't know if that. So I've always loved it when there's I've always loved the steps up, like different portrayals that are kind of different than what I grew up with. So I don't know. Does that make sense to you? Like, I just was like, hey, she's cool. Hero. Like, she's driving the bus. Like, she's just kind of chill.
But she's reluctant. I think for me, what's interesting, there's this tendency sometimes when we're putting women in movies and TV shows, especially now, to make them like almost like perfect or like too strong, and it flattens them. In case we didn't know, like, women are people, women are human. We're not perfect, despite the evidence for myself. But I think it's more interesting when there are flaws or there's just like a humanity to them, and Nancy is not perfect, but she's so interesting. And, with Sandra Bullock, like, she's reluctant to do a lot of that stuff. She's scared. It's good that we see she's scared. All of these things, like, because then when I think about the women of Deep Blue Sea, they're terrible. We hate Saffron Burrows. She's sort of this icy, there's nothing redeeming about her. Jan, I've said this before, I do not care when she dies. So, when we look at Deep Blue Sea 2, Misty is a little bit more of a complete character. She's great. And then, like, moving to Deep Blue Sea 3, I love the portrayal of women in Deep Blue Sea 3. I loved the ending of that movie. It's, again, pulls at my heartstrings, which is maybe what they're going for. I don't know.
Yeah, 3 of them on the boat. Isn't that just a great moment and shot?
My God,
you're stuck with us now.
Yeah, if I had tears, I would have cried them. Yeah, I really I like where people are moving with women in movies where they don't necessarily need to fulfill this idea of the cool girl, which I think at the beginning of